Welcome everybody to the Old Gold Show with you as always. I'm your co-host, co-manager over at Hammer and Rails, Andrew Ledman. That's
And
gonna have to work.
and I'm Casey. I'm just trying to Irish goodbye this season, Bartley.
Yeah.
Why are we here?
Well, we're here because Purdue was in the Final Four and then they were in the national championship game. We haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, but before we get started, yeah, it's all on Casey. Before we get started,
Oh, is that the Coke Zero?
I'm opening up the Final Four edition of Coke Zero Sugar that they handed out after the game.
I was wondering where those came from. I saw them on the side of the road. I saw one that wasn't open, and I almost grabbed it, but then that's creepy. I don't love
believe
that.
I believe I sent you a message after I left the stadium and said free Coke Zero when you exit the stadium.
Really?
But let me tell you, yeah, here's my problem. And this is nothing to do with the game. This is all directed directly at the NCAA.
I thought it was going to be me.
No, that's a whole other segment.
I left like 4 hours later that night. So
yeah,
there was no more Coke Zero.
Right. So Casey and I were credentialed
yes, I know
for
where
this
you're going
game.
now.
I know. It's at State Farm Arena. So we park in the media parking lot. We walk into the media specific gate. It is the Coke Zero Sugar Gate. I'm like, okay. And if you're a listener of the podcast or you watch the podcast, you know that Casey and I very often drink Coke Zero. We're big fans of Coke Zero here on the podcast. Still waiting for that Coke Zero money to come. Have not gotten any DMs, but
they are really sticking to that zero.
Yeah. So go in, get my credential, get my little wristband, get my bag checked, go all the way to the media room and go in to get myself something to drink. It's of course, it's a Coke place. I mean, the NCAA, it's all Coke products. They got Coke, they got Sprite, they got Diet Coke. There's no Coke Zero, even though I walked through the Coke Zero Sugar, the gate, and during the games, they always have that Coke Zero fan cam. They're giving away Coke Zeros after the game, but I can't get a Coke Zero as a media member covering the game.
No Coke Zero.
What are we doing, NCAA?
Also, apparently Powerade has more money than Coke Zero because when you go out onto the floor, like it doesn't matter that you have a Coke. Yep. You have to put it in a Powerade little cup.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case in Indy for some reason.
I think
this might not be interesting to anyone, but I'm just saying it's really weird because for the longest time, every NCAA tournament, you couldn't put anything, like you couldn't have anything that wasn't in that cup. In Indy, they're like, hey, this is Coke. They buy our stuff. It's fine. It's sponsored. Not going forward, though.
Yeah, I tried to take a can of Diet Coke, like as an extra, just in my hand with a Diet Coke in one of the Powerade cups in Phoenix and walk out to my seat. And they're like, you got to put that in a cup. Yeah. I'm like, can I just put it in my bag? It's like, well, you got to put it in. I was like, okay. So I just like pour it in a cup and I'm carrying 2 cups. It was a mess.
I feel like a lawyer should know better.
I should have just put it in my bag and just walked by, but like my bag was already in my seat.
The fact that you knew you couldn't in the first can, I don't know why you thought the second can would be legal.
Well, because it wasn't open.
What is the precedent, sir?
I thought part of it was, it's not open. I'm just whatever. It doesn't matter. But obviously Casey and I, had a great time for the most part in Phoenix. Got to see a lot of Boilermakers, see a lot of famous basketball analysts. Everybody who covers basketball was there. Yes, so many Purdue fans. It was really great. I mean, for those of you that weren't there, the Purdue bars were filled starting at like 8:30 or 9 in the morning.
Y'all are degenerates.
Oh yeah. Whereas like the other team bars, UConn, NC State, Alabama, basically ghost towns around the arena. Maybe they were somewhere else. I don't know. But they certainly weren't at those bars and they certainly weren't taking over the stadium like Purdue fans were. And we talked to, at least I talked to some vendors. They said everything of Purdue specific Final Four gear sold out within like 12 hours.
Well, we both got in trouble. You got in more trouble because you did it to your wife. But you decided to buy just your kid a shirt.
No.
Tried to go back and get your wife a shirt, and it was out of the one.
No. Here's what happened. Let's set the record straight.
I got you, Jess.
I sent a picture of like the display of shirts to my wife, and I said, "Here's what they have. Let me know which one you want." So she like circled the one she wanted, and then
I noticed that you're already blaming her for this.
No. Mm-hmm. I'm not blaming her.
Mm-hmm.
She circled the one she wanted, but then was like, but all of these are fine. And I was like, okay, great. So I was going to go on Sunday because this was the day where there were no games. So I was like, all right, let's go to the Fan Fest.
Good free day.
Yeah, good free day. I go to the Fan Fest at the convention center. They have one store in the Fan Fest. I go to the Purdue corner. There is there is very limited Purdue centric gear. It's all like generic, like Final Four with all the teams and everything. So that is where
let's just shout out for a second. The aesthetics and colors of the Final Four in Phoenix.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. That orange, that blue.
I wish I had my hat. It's in the car. It's gorgeous. Good job, Phoenix.
Yeah, perfect. So I get my son a shirt. And then I'm like, well, I'll just go to the arena tomorrow before the game and get one. Nope, arena completely sold out. So I ended up having to buy her a championship game shirt, which is Purdue UConn, of course. So it was more Purdue centric than most of what I could find. But I did walk away with 2 shirts. And because I went to the Fan Fest, I also got my son a basketball. I got my sister-in-law a Chuck Stop trucker hat, which apparently is something she wanted. Yeah, I don't know. I got one of those.
Your sister-in-law a trucker?
No, she apparently just loves Charles Barkley. I had no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. No idea. So got one of the scarves that they put on the seats. So, I told you this, I really wanted to be able to get one of those towels that they had on the benches because it was that like blue and orange design. Towel. Yeah. Because, they really had great designs on their merch, man. The colors were great. The design was good. And I do love that Final Four logo. The state of Arizona.
That's what's on the hat. It's real solid.
Yeah.
Real solid.
Yeah.
Similar because they had little tents all around like the city.
Right.
That had stuff. And it was Purdue sold out everywhere. I think I saw like one like 4X. And then like the leather jackets didn't sell well. It was an interesting choice to bring to Phoenix for a Final Four thing. Bunch of heavy jackets. Like, go look online. Those might be on sale soon. But I think that does lead into a bigger picture of just like, we've both been thinking about this for a long time. There's a lot of Purdue people that thought about it. Did Final Four, was it everything you thought it would be? Did the Purdue people live up to it?
Yeah. It was incredible. Like, obviously the outcome of the Connecticut game, the national title game, was not what we wanted. Purdue played, a good half of basketball and stayed in the game. Well, they stayed in the game for the half, and then it all kind of devolved in that second half. But to be at the Final Four, you look around in that first game against NC State, it was easily 65-70% Purdue in that arena. To hear the whose house, our house in there, to hear Boiler Up, all throughout the arena, just to be able to watch the fans. Like I found myself, because I was sitting in the end zone, three rows back in the end zone. So the fans were really pretty close to me.
Yeah.
That were in the end zone. So I could hear them. And I found myself like just turning around to watch them during the game because you could just see the exuberance and the excitement as Purdue pulled away and as Purdue really controlled that game against NC State almost in its entirety. And just to see the excitement on fans, all the way from like 8 to 9 years old, all the way into like the 80s. And it was really just a wonderful thing to see. And then my seat also was, as I said, in the end zone, so I could see the paint crew the entire time. And as someone who was VP of the paint crew during my time, that was like,
how drunk would you have been if you were a student and able to go to a Final Four?
I don't think I would have been drunk because I would have been terrified. Like I would have been drinking before the game, but like I wouldn't drink at the game. Yeah, I get that. But
I would have been so hammered.
I also would have been afraid of having to go to the bathroom every 30 seconds and miss too much of the game.
I think I would have. I don't think at 8 a.m. when I started out at the Purdue bars, I would have been thinking about, Oh
Fair,
no, I'm not going to be able to make it through the game.
fair. So speaking of, let me tell you a little story about what happened to me.
We don't the bathroom story.
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, thank God.
And I'm not going to share whatever that is.
It's your story.
I'm not sure which one you mean, but
one of the bathrooms did smell like crab dip, and that was unsettling all weekend.
I didn't.
The main one out to the tunnel. You walked in, and I can't tell you the emotional discharge that happens when you smell crab dip.
Maybe don't use the word.
No, that's the right word. Because
don't use the word discharge when you're talking about the bathroom.
I'm just saying it smells like crab dip.
So I stayed with a guy I went to Purdue with. We shared a hotel room, and so we went in the morning to get my credential at like 8:39 in the morning or whatever. So we walk around, we see all the merch, we see the Purdue bar where there's just huge line of people waiting to get in.
Not what you envision when you think media credential pickup.
Right. Yeah. Escalator was broken.
Outdoor strip mall.
Yeah.
And they were just like that place used to be I think a shrimp taco place, perhaps.
Could have
been a burrito bar.
Yeah. Could have been a Bubba Gumps. I don't know.
It was a collection of foldable tables and a box of credentials.
Yeah, like 4 people just sitting in there on their phones waiting for media members to come in. So we go in, we get my credential, go about the day, kind of look at all the stuff around there, take some pictures. And then my buddy is a soccer fan, and he wanted to watch a soccer game that was, of course, it starts at like 10 a.m. or whatever here because, it's over in the UK. And so we're just walking around, and none of the bars are like open yet, but we walk by this one and their doors are open. There's music playing. So we kind of walk in and we go, "Hey, you guys open?" They go, "Oh no, we don't open until 10:30 or 11."
That should be the end of this conversation.
Right.
That should be the end of the story.
So we're like, "Oh, okay." And the woman who I guess was the manager, I'm not really sure, was like, "Oh, were you guys just trying to get a drink?" And my buddy's like, "Well, I wanted to watch a soccer match. I was trying to see if any of the bars had it on." She goes, "Yeah, I'll put it on for you. I'll get you some drinks." We're like, "Huh?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, it's fine." She goes, "Where do you want to sit?" So
she just weird behavior.
She just like opens the bar and she's like, "Yeah, you want to sit here with the big TV, near the big TV?" Yeah. So she turns on the soccer game. She just starts making us drinks, brings us drinks. And then we're like, after a little bit, we're like, "Hey, what time's the kitchen open?" She goes, "Oh, not till we open till 11. She goes, "But we got some appetizers ready. Do you just want those?"
What is happening?
So she brings us like a thing of chips and salsa with also some queso and then some guacamole, and just brings it over and is like, "Yeah, she's like, we had a news segment this morning and they wanted to see some appetizers, so we made them." And she ended up just giving us those for free.
Okay. I have. Do you want the mean comment or the nice comment I have about this?
Go mean and then nice. Okay. I'd like a little spoonful of sugar at the end.
Did anyone come to the bar while you guys were seated here for 2 hours to watch a soccer game?
Do you mean like other fans try to come in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And they were turned away.
Because I was gonna make it's weird. That's weird. I was gonna make fun of you guys for being so uninviting that you didn't bring in a whole party.
No,
but
so like more people came to the door and like were like looking around and they saw us, and the same woman
you're just sitting there eating guac.
The same woman who told us to come in was like, "Sorry guys, we're not open yet," and like told them to leave. I'm like, what is going on? Needless to say, Olivia at the New Orleans themed bar, whatever it is.
Wow.
She got a very very nice Fat Tuesdays.
Fat Tuesdays.
Olivia got a very nice tip when I paid
much?
for all that. Like 75%.
I was hoping you were going to say $75.
No, I mean the bill was only $30.
Okay. For a second, I was thinking you got Coke Zeros, and I'm like, wow, you tipped her 75 cents. Good job.
Yeah. It was like we got like 5 drinks, and it was $30, and I was like,
I will say, in general, people in Phoenix very happy.
Yeah, they threw a great event.
Is West Coast
no complaints? Whoa, as someone who lives on the East Coast, I'm not getting involved in that.
No one's that happy on the East Coast. No one is that happy in Baltimore.
For that in the 90s.
No one is that happy in Washington, D.C. No one's that happy in New York City. It's warm. It's warm out there.
I
Here
mean,
it gets hot. It was perfect.
The weather plays a big part of
Gorgeous.
it for sure.
It was so nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you got any fun stories for us from the Final Four? You
No, I
care to
worked
share?
the
I
whole
know
time, Ledman.
you got to
I
sing.
can okay. Probably the most fun. So like it's weird when you're in the NCAA tournament. You have way more. We have way more time with like the entire team than we ever do during the season. You get 30 minutes day before a game. You get an extra day. There were 2 media days before the Final Four game. So we're just hanging around in the locker room and we get 30 minutes with everyone. And like you can get through your stuff in like 20 minutes. But then, you just hang out and kind of talk to them. And apparently, if you were to guess, if the Purdue basketball team had an NBA 2K tournament, who do you think would win?
Lawyer.
No, Braden Smith.
Oh,
Except Braden Smith got destroyed by PJ Thompson in the championship.
Yeah, that tracks. That tracks.
So that's where we are. We've got video game playing assistant coaches at Purdue.
Good.
Who are like 8 years younger than us.
I was going to say.
PJ Thompson's like 28. He's now been involved in, it's getting close to like 20 NCAA tournament games. And wild. He's 28 years old. This is ridiculous. What have I done with my life? You're like a lawyer. I get that. That sounds cool. But what am I doing with my life, Ledman? You know how many?
No, I mean,
I've covered NCAA tournament games.
Yeah, you covered more than 20, maybe.
I've covered Purdue, Ledman, so no.
Yeah, I was.
Well, no, because I covered most of his playing.
Yeah. And then everyone he's been a coach for, you've covered. So it's got to be close.
It's close.
But
me and PJ tied together. Didn't know that.
Exactly.
I'll have to let him know.
It's everyone, when they say PJ Thompson, they immediately think Casey Bartley.
I mean, that's kind of what you want. Like, you kind of want to be the pin for the player.
Yeah, that's why when PJ inevitably gets his head coaching gig, he's going to give you a ring and see if you want to be director of basketball operations.
That was another one of my fun. Oh, that'd be a good job. Even though I don't think I'm qualified for any of the, you got to be like organized and stuff. Like I'm a good time. Is that enough?
That's
for
not.
A job?
That's
been
not
enough for every job I've ever had before.
Yeah, I was saying that's kind of how you've lived your life.
Right.
So it'll work.
Braden Smith had a cool moment after that. Like he struggled in that Final Four game.
Yeah.
If we talk about the actual game, like it was probably
the
one
NC
of his
State
worst
game,
performances.
I would say his worst. I mean, without a doubt. In that first half, he started out 0 for 6 before he hit a 3.
Just looked off.
Just something looked bad. In fact, Ryan, my other writer from Hammer and Rails, was sitting next to me, and I was finishing a story, and he was getting ready to head to the press conferences in the locker room. And I said to him, you need to find out if Braden Smith is injured or if he is sick. I said, that is like your number one.
Did you bring him
goal.
with a thermometer?
No, I was more thinking he could ask a question. Not just
in the ear.
98.9. He seems fine.
He's fine. You seemed colder out there.
Yeah.
That was a fun story, Braden. After that, normally Braden does not love talking to media. We're not like his favorite people, which is fair. We're not my favorite people.
Yeah.
It's a lot. After that game, he grabbed a chair, put it in the middle of the locker room, and sat down on it.
He knew.
Yeah. No, like he owned up to it. There was no shying away from it. And one of the answers, I think it was that day, where he was talking about PJ and his relationship, and he's like, yeah, when I'm done playing, or no, PJ told me this, I think. And he was like, yeah, when I have a coaching job somewhere and he's done playing, he said, make sure I'm your first call. I'll be right there on the bench with you. And I think little things like that just like tie the way it's a fitting narrative for a team that really tied multiple generations together, both with the coaching staff, players, former players. I was following Gene Katie out of the tunnel. I missed this particular moment, but he just walks up and all of a sudden there's Drew Brees. And then you've got Drew Brees and Gene Katie shaking hands in the tunnel in a Final Four game for Purdue.
Right.
There's a lot of futures where that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, I'll
So
tell
like,
you, I followed Gene Katie out of the tunnel on I think it was the championship game, and he must not have been wearing a credential. And we had the NCAA guys running after him, like, "Hey, does he have a credential? Who was it? Does he?" And one of the other guys was like, "That's Gene Katie. He's fine." And they're like, "But he doesn't have a credential." So these two guys like run
those
after him,
security
and they
guys,
like they stop
calm
him, and
down
they're
a
like,
little.
and Coach Katie was just like what are we like kind of doing one of these like no I'm and like trying to point and
Legend.
explaining the situation, and then somebody from Purdue I didn't see
Yeah.
who it was coming by and was like no he come on, and they got him clear, but it was just like those guys, I understand it's their job, but sometimes you got to pump the brakes a little bit.
They spilled my coffee.
They did.
Just pushed my arm.
They did.
Spilled it. Unbelievable.
It was probably the worst thing that happened to any Purdue person that whole weekend.
That's fair. Yeah, it was like, what a weird. It's like we're kind of scattered about it. Obviously, I mean, we're obviously not doing a quick wrap since we're
8 days away.
Yeah, 8 days past. But like the whole weekend is kind of a blur of just positive energy, just a lot of good stuff everywhere. Even like, I think it helps when like NC State was just happy to be there a little bit.
Right. Oh, for sure.
You know, who was the other team?
Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama, a little happy to be there.
Yeah.
That team didn't look like a Final Four team for a lot of time this year.
I was really rooting for that Alabama team in that UConn game, though, because
holy
I mean,
hell, should we talk about UConn, Ledman?
I guess
that is a fine sporting program.
Here, let's take a break so we can throw in all our ads. We'll come back, talk about Purdue UConn and how we finish the season.
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines for making all of our picks and predictions, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money to get it. This is what you have to do to make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll get up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the rest of the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and the thing that I love the most, a nice little parlay boost, as well as a ridiculous array of prop bets for anything that you could possibly imagine betting on. From odds on getting to the Final Four to national championship futures, I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app. Use that code FIELD and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod in any podcast app. Like and share the YouTube videos that you enjoy. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
And we are back. So let's talk at least a little bit about the championship game, Purdue UConn. As I said right before the break, you and I stayed after the Purdue NC State game to watch that second game, UConn Alabama. I was rooting hard for Alabama because I know Purdue had played them. I know Purdue could beat them. And it was just, I'd seen enough of UConn to know they are very good. And the optimist in me, still believed that Purdue could beat them, just because, Purdue has a lot of talent on their team as well. But I knew Purdue could beat Alabama, so I was rooting for Alabama, and they were shooting the lights out. They were shooting like 70 to 80% from three, and were still losing. And at that point, you look at their opponent UConn, and you're like, oh, this is a good team. Start to get a little worried.
Yeah, kind of a good full circle story for the whole season, because Alabama also did that to Purdue. I think they made 12 first half free throws, 18 for the game, still lost.
There's 3-pointers.
What?
You mean 3-pointers? You said free throws.
Free pointers.
Oh, yes, free pointers. That's what they call them. Yeah.
And there's two teams in the country that can withstand Alabama's barrage of 3-pointers and still out execute them everywhere else. And those two teams played for a national title on Monday night. And Purdue didn't play well.
No.
But UConn didn't allow them to play well.
Right.
Like you're not just out there on your own. They did well to stay in it in the first half. I went back and forth because like the easy thing is to be like Painter didn't have a second option. The way they were defending Purdue's guys, and like we've seen, like Fletcher Lawyer is not a guy who's going to disrupt NBA defenders, and that's what UConn has on the wing. They've got 3 of them. And Braden Smith's shot is still a little off. He looked better, obviously, but
yeah, much better. But
they just they gave one-on-one to Edey. And I think if you, to a man, to every person on that team, to every person on that coaching staff, if you go, this team is going to give you one-on-one chances. They've got the best post defender to possibly go up against Edey, but they're going to give it to you one-on-one. And nothing else is going to be easy. It's not like you have choices. It's either you give Edey one-on-one inside, or you are going to struggle to find very difficult shots between guys who aren't as good as Zach Edey, because like no one's as good as Zach
right.
Edey. I think they would all say, we get it. It's going to be hard. It's not the ideal way to play just through one guy, but we're going to go down swinging with our best bet. And Zach Edey's been the best bet any player, any team, any program has been able to put on any one person for the last 2 years. And so they went swinging that way, and that's fine.
And that's what you wrote in your post game. Edey was obviously Purdue's best player, and you got to ride your best player and see if he can carry you to a victory. And he just couldn't. And it was through no fault of his. He put up, gosh, how many points did he end up with? 37 points.
37? Yeah.
37 of Purdue's 60 points. And I mean, that's great for him. Absolutely incredible performance. But it just shows you how good UConn is, because we've talked all year. If you're going to beat Purdue, you got to pick your poison. You got to say, I'm going to stop Edey and I'm going to make the guards beat me, or I'm going to stop the guards and make Edey beat me. It's very hard to do that. It's very hard to stay committed to one of those things and do it for 40 minutes. UConn did it for 40 minutes. They said, we are going to make Zach Edey beat us. We are going to shut them down from 3. Purdue was 1 of 7 from 3. They only got off 7 threes in this entire game. 40 minutes, and they get off 7 threes, only make 1 of them. And UConn just said, this is exactly what we want to do. We're going to run you off your shot. We're going to make it nearly impossible to get a good look, and you're going to have to dump it down to Zach Edey. You can score 2 points every time down the floor. That's fine. We'll take that, and we'll go down and we'll play our game. And they did it. They did it flawlessly for 40 minutes, scored 75 to Purdue 60, and they just outplayed Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you've got to be frustrated about if you're watching that game, the one thing that, like, it wasn't even offense that was like the biggest issue. Purdue couldn't get a defensive rebound.
Yeah.
All night.
The rebounding was so frustrating.
So like getting out rebounded, giving that UConn offense more chances. They only put up 75 and they out rebounded Purdue by a wide margin. They weren't bad on defense at all. Purdue played its best stretch of defense all season. If you want to talk about effort, locked in, playing hard, like from the jump of the tournament, this was the best defensive performances that Purdue put up 6 straight games pretty much. And they were really good against UConn. They took some things away. They didn't make it easy. It's just when that ball went up, that size on the perimeter, Klingon's ability to move, just the way UConn was able to attack the offensive glass. And maybe that's a little Purdue can't kill you in transition the way some teams did. So like, but also you can't kill a team in transition if you don't get a rebound. Yeah. So if Purdue grabs rebounds there, you're talking about quick, easy points, something Purdue desperately needed.
Oh, for sure.
And they just couldn't get there. So like you look at the one thing and like, that's the turning point. And so Purdue lost to an all-time great team, not through some epic collapse, not through some coach game plan that didn't work or getting out coached. They got out rebounded, and they got out rebounded by a team that was bigger at every spot except center, and everyone knew it.
Yeah. I mean, Purdue got out rebounded by 7, but they also allowed an amazing 14 offensive rebounds to UConn. And as you said, you can't give an offense like that 14 extra chances. at the ball, and it was just too much to overcome. And I've seen, a tiny portion of people complaining about the game plan for Purdue or whatever, and you're always going to have those people. And I know this won't convince them, but something Matt Painter once said that always kind of sticks with me is, when you get beat by an opponent, you have to give credit to that opponent because they also have scholarships to give. They have 13 scholarships to give to. We're not playing guys from the YMCA. These are good, talented players, and exactly, Casey is wearing a YMCA sponsored shirt right now.
What's that say?
League champion. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I, on the other hand, am wearing a Chris Sabo shirt that Casey mocked right before we started recording. So
it was cute.
Yes, it was adorable. But I just say that to emphasize that this UConn team, as you said, generational talents, incredibly talented at each and every position. And it's no knock on Purdue to lose to this team. Yes, it sucks. Yes, it hurts. Made the drive back to the hotel really silent and uncomfortable. And when I made Ryan go into the locker room while I wrote my story, so he had to deal with that sadness. It was just horrible, I'm sure. Casey, what was it like going in there after this loss? I mean, I know they have a cooling off period and all of that.
Yeah.
Didn't lose the final, but it's got to just be sad.
Yeah, it kind of depends what part of the locker room you're talking about. Braden Smith I would categorize a little more as angry. Yeah. Like ready to get back out there, like annoyed that he lost that game. Fletcher Lawyer, very sad. He broke down towards the end of my talking to him a little bit. I think he continued that when I walked away. Obviously, these games mean a lot to fans and people. Like, it means even more to players. Shocking.
People forget that, I think, a lot. Because it does mean so much to so many of us, and I include myself in that category. But, we're not the ones playing the games. We're not the ones who will remember every possession and like, oh, I could have done this and I could have done that. And it's just so often in sports, we forget about the fact that the players are people. We don't think of them the same way we do like our friend down the road. We just think of them as kind of like pieces in a machine,
right?
That they either win or they lose, but they take it harder than anybody. Painter has talked about that with him and his coaching style too.
Yeah, I mean, like former walk-on Carson Barrett, he's a senior, he's done. He was, heartbroken, devastated, didn't have words. He's like, I feel numb. There is a business side to this team that was always just pretty business-like, and I think like Zach Edey handled it. Like he wore the whole season on like his shoulders. He knows there's more ahead of him, and he knows like these kids aren't dumb. They know they did something. Like, win or lose, they did something that really needed to be done at Purdue. They accomplished a lot. None of them wanted to not win that game. They all expected to, but like you can't go back and change the score. All you can do is just kind of make peace with it. Trey Kaufman-Wren, like it sucks. He's like, I've got 5 days to take off and then I'll be back in the gym.
Yeah.
I think I just saw a tweet that Braden Smith's
Braden Smith is already in the gym.
So you've got guys that are like looking towards next season. You got guys who obviously a little heartbroken by it. For some people, Mason Gillis, Ethan Morton, their career's not over, but they knew that night that was their last game as a Purdue Boilermaker.
Yeah.
That's both of them are pretty well together and, didn't break down, but like there's a sadness there because like that's the last time you put on that jersey, and like they've done a lot to add to what that means to put that jersey on, and
exactly
they won't get to do it with this. This team was so special in the sense of the way they bonded together, the way they got through adversary. The more we got into March, the more that it kind of just reflected on me, like, how did this team get through last season?
Yeah.
I have no idea how they didn't splinter or tear apart or get a little worse or just not get better in the places they needed to or underneath the pressure.
The pressure is what I was going to say. I mean, second round, third round, any of those games could have easily just been too much for them. I mean, facing that Tennessee team in the Elite Eight could have crumbled anyone, but Purdue rose to the occasion, and they were down by 11 or 12 in that game and came back to win. And so much of it could have just buried them, but it didn't. And I want to highlight one thing you said is, they know they've done something special. It may not seem like it right now, but in the future they'll look back on it and be able to view it more clearly. And I think that's never more true than it is for folks who finish second. They've done studies of Olympic athletes. The gold medalist is always thrilled, because they beat everyone. They're the top in the world. The bronze medalist is always the second happiest of the three medalists.
I'm kidding.
Because they are so close to not medaling. They're so close to not getting anything that they view it as like, I did it. I hung on. I got this bronze. Whereas the silver medalist, at least in the moment, always questions what I could have done. How could I have gotten first? Not, oh my gosh, I'm the second best in the entire world. Their question is always, how could I have been first? What did I do that put me here instead of over there? So there's this sense of being stuck in the middle for that second place, and I'm sure that it's that same feeling you get if you lose in the championship game of an NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I definitely think there is some of that, but I also think that like this narrative has just been so big, and they had such a big monkey to get off their back that like, I think there was relief a little bit at the end of the game, just because like,
I'm sure
there's nothing they could have won one more game, but literally besides that, there's nothing more they could have done.
Yeah.
And like with all the great teams and players that didn't get that far, to finally be able to do that I think it helps because the sadness is your own, right? You own the sadness. There was so much happy to be had.
Yeah.
For
There's a lot of joy.
For all the people, for Robbie Hummel, for Gene Katie, for all that, just for Matt Painter. Like, all the happy to be had for everyone else and all the Purdue fans that showed up all weekend, all tournament long. So like, I think there was plenty to be celebrated even in that loss right after.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I look back on this season years from now, the moment I'll always remember is going to be winning that Elite Eight game, because just the release of emotion, the release of joy from every Purdue fan in Little Caesars Arena, it was cathartic. It was probably the best sports moment I've ever experienced in person. As you said, you look over to my right, Robbie Hummel is crying while broadcasting. Matt Painter comes over, talks to him. They embrace. Paul Lusk comes behind us and talks to Ryan Smith, and they embrace. You've got, Coach Painter's daughter is on the floor, just like bawling her eyes out of happiness. You see Gene Katie get the net from Zach Edey. I mean, every moment was special. Every moment is etched in my mind. And yes, it sucks to not win the whole thing, to not be able to hang that national championship banner, and to put that monkey off our back as well. But I mean, this season was incredible. It was special up and down. And it is one that I will never forget, and that I had such the privilege to be able to cover, to be there in person, to, even in the smallest of ways, talk to these people and cover it, is going to be one of the joys of my life that I'll never forget.
Yeah, in 30 years there will still be people asking about this team.
Yeah. And
I mean, thank you to you guys watching, listening, reading. Because of that, we got to experience that, and it is very rewarding for just to be tied into that community and to be able to be around a team and players. Like, even without all that, this team would have been special, but to throw all that on top of it, to throw in the way Columbus ended last year, like just a truly remarkable thing to witness for a whole season. And like, there is no shame in losing by 15 points to that UConn team.
No. And I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, Andrew, you're going to be covering the Final Four. You'll be credentialed. You'll be able to sit, in the arena, both for the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, and the Final Four. I mean, that's a dream.
But Ledman, what if I told you no Coke Zero?
Well, then I'm crushed. Then I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I'll be like, you can take this Coke Zero from my cold, dead hands. So, I mean, it was a dream come true for a lot of people. It didn't end how we wanted it to end, but not everything has a Hollywood ending. Ted Lasso didn't have a Hollywood ending either. And you and I still love that show, and we'll rewatch it 9, 10, 11, 12 more times. So I just, to echo Casey, thank you everyone who listened, everyone who watched. You made a lot of this possible as well. And, just what a cool experience. Thank you for going along for the ride. We don't know if we're going to keep doing this, kind of up to the field of 68 folks, to see if they want to do it again next season or what. But you know what a season to have it all on video, to have it all recorded. So unless Casey has anything else, I think that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for listening, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Maybe we'll see you next time.